Hello and welcome to Business Agenda SA. The strength of the South Australian economy relies on a number of industry sectors that have developed a world-class reputation.
Our state is also known for innovation and entrepreneurialism, and it's this mix of the old and new that we'll examine in this series. Coming up on today's program,
We look at the defence industry and the challenges faced by SMEs.
we meet some international businesses that have come to Adelaide to get investor ready.
And we hear from the experts about future trends in marketing.
South Australia's defence industry represents 25% of the national defence budget. It employs around 27,000 people and generates about $1.8 billion in revenue each year for the state. It's big business, but there are growing fears that the industry may not have a sustainable future.
The $8 billion air warfare destroyer project, based here in Port Adelaide, is one of the most significant defence contracts in Australian history. And with nearly $2.5 billion being spent here in South Australia, local advanced manufacturing companies have been big winners. But cuts to the defence budget have delayed parts of the project, creating uncertainty in an industry that's vital to the South Australian economy.
Defence projects are traditionally always big and they're generally primed by a larger company. And it's the small and medium enterprises that rely on being able to subcontract to those primes to get the work. So big projects like the air warfare destroyer are bread and butter for our small and medium enterprises here in South Australia.
When the state government made defence a part of their strategic plan, we looked at it as a great opportunity for SAGE. Then the announcement was made about the air warfare destroyers to be built here in Adelaide. And it was at that time we closely monitored the progress of the two competing parties to build those ships. And that's when we went on our search to find an opportunity for SAGE in control systems integration.
We started 2008 working with BAE Systems on their M113 upgrade program. And that was our first foray into the defence market, making up small brackets, ammunition feed lines, headlight covers, things like that. So that really taught us how to start thinking like a defence contractor, but that didn't happen overnight. We were travelling at about sort of $2.5 million turnover before we started in defence, and we found ourselves quickly growing up to about a $6 million turnover after about 5 years. So the growth is huge, but of course there's lots of troughs as well. So when it stops, it stops. And I think in the last financial year we've halved our turnover as a result of the slowdown in the defence industry.
Defence work is renowned for its peaks and troughs in spending, and industry fears were realised when the government announced that the AWD build was being put on hold without notice.
It's very hard to sustain a business on defence work alone. It is cyclical in nature.
We're expecting the end of the part of the program we were working on to come, but we're expecting that within about 18 months. So we had a fairly loose plan on how we would react, but all of a sudden we had to react overnight. And you can't really do that as easily as you'd like to. So we've had to go through redundancies.
Sustaining the workforce is a major challenge for the industry. So the more technical the requirements are, the more valuable the workforce is, and the more expensive they are to both maintain and to re-establish.
Sustainability for many depends on diversification into other industries during the downtimes.
Diversification is something that we've all learnt to live with, and businesses really need to be able to deliver a spread of services over a spread of industries if they're going to remain at the pinnacle of the skill level.
Companies have had to diversify. They've had to look at other industry sectors such as resources, infrastructure, energy, and go out hunting for work in those sectors.
Previously, when the defence work was very heavy, we didn't have the ability to market in the other industries. So now we've got our key people in the organisation working in the mining side, in the water side, in the rail side. So we're all learning a lot very quickly, which has been challenging but really enjoyable.
So is there actually a silver lining for the SMEs that have successfully diversified? And do we still need a change in culture in government and defence to build an industry that's perpetual.
I'm not sure I'd call it a silver lining. I think really more a bronze lining. DMO, who are responsible for defence procurement, they're looking to get more for less. And in that regard, they're not unique. Really, all of our clients have got the same pressures. It's a matter of having to work smarter. So we need to think about how we can set up our shops in order to be able to process their requirements more efficiently.
But with this hefty gap between the AWD and submarine projects drawing ever closer, are there any solutions to the problem of what happens in the interim?
We don't have any follow-on projects from the air warfare destroyer and nothing to fill the gap between 2016, where the workforce starts to tailor off, to when we start to want to build the future submarines, which will be in the early 2020s. So we have that horrible term, the valley of death.
So we're looking for something to plug that 4-year gap, and I'm hopeful the federal government will do just that. They'll allocate a couple of large ships for fabrication in South Australia during that period of time.
Defence is federal. It has to support Australia as a nation, or the nation has to support the industry. The only way we can do that is to get the federal government to start spending money.
And what are the consequences if that doesn't happen?
The risk is the industry will dissipate, they will go offshore to purchase their ships, and the industry will dissipate overseas or in other states.
The state has worked very hard to maintain a significant defence industry, and that's really important for the future prosperity of the state. So as those who are involved in making expenditure and capital program decisions, I hope that they keep in mind how critical defence is to the state of South Australia, and conversely, how critical the state of South Australia is to enabling the country's defence requirements.
So defence is a vital component of the South Australian economy, but it needs to be consistent. More than any other industry, defence is reliant on the decisions made by just a few people in Canberra, and those decisions can be difficult to forecast. But the last thing we need is for this sector to be defensive. Next up, world expert in innovation management and strategy, Professor Joran Roos, gives us his take on the benefits of innovation in business.
Innovation is the fundamental underpinning of businesses in all firms. And as a firm, you need to innovate in 2 dimensions. You need to innovate to reduce your cost of operation, and that includes things like process innovation, automation, and all those issues that you have to do to reduce the operating costs. The other side of it is to innovate to drive up value. That means innovate in new products, new services, and new business models. And as a totality, as a firm, unless you do both, you are not going to survive, because if you don't, somebody else will. And that means that they will offer more value for less cost, and that is normally the end of you as a company. So not only is innovation something that underpins business, it's also a fundamental requirement. If you do not have that, you will not survive in an ever-increasing globalized world.
For more information, go to demiter.sa.gov.au. Coming up after the break, we visit the ANZ Innovate Start offices to meet some of the people involved in this innovative business accelerator.
Business Agenda SA is proudly brought to you by ANZ, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Australia, and Warman's Lawyers.
ANZ Innovate Start is an Adelaide-based business accelerator. Now in its 3rd incarnation, the mentor-driven program allows technology-based startups and new businesses to draw on the experience of those who've been there and done it all before.
ANZ Innovate Start provides new businesses and startups with the opportunity to take part in a program where they're granted access to a network of mentors who can assist them in the rapid growth of their business.
The ANZ Innovate Start program is a 13-week startup accelerator where we bring in largely mobile and web-based businesses to work with mentors that come from Australia and around the world. But essentially it culminates in a pitch process where businesses will stand up and pitch for capital from investors in the room.
I think Adelaide is perfect for the Anz Innovate program. You know, it has a great educational infrastructure here, great schools, great universities. Not only that, it's an easy place to get around, and it's an easy place to navigate as someone, particularly someone from a new country coming here. It's a reason why they don't do it in the middle of New York.
So this is a program to teach companies who have teams and have a product how to scale. So we look for globally relevant, breakthrough technology. We look for teams of people who understand that you have to build the organization, and then we bring them in. We have a very rich environment. I'm working with them all the time, teaching them. Mentors are coming in and teaching them. And at the end of 13 weeks, they have a plan, they have a team in place, and they're ready to go global.
If you think about why this program is important, and you know, even companies like ANZ sponsoring the ANZ Innovate program, they recognise that their future relies on Australia doing this better. They realise that things grow out of this. Their future business is dependent upon this, because we can't keep banking on our traditional businesses.
This is the third time that I've been to the program to mentor, and it's absolutely a fantastic experience, and there's great companies here, and the amount of talent that they assemble to help these companies here is just amazing.
What's the experience like from the point of view of the participants taking part in the incubator program?
Average day, starts early, ends late, and yeah, a lot of coffee. Well, in terms of an overview of Go Catalyze, it's a team of 4. We really got together around the concept of making business easier, so taking the work out of business. And we produce a platform which makes it easy for organisations to model their processes in an online system.
We have something unique that's going on this year in terms of the Bridge program, which is taking startups that are a little more mature and helping them get to the next level. When I look at Singa, which is a company that was here in Program 2, they've gone from what I thought was just a crazy great idea to where I'm looking at the fact that they've pulled it off, and they've got this beautiful app, and they've got these fantastic partnerships.
Our vision at Singa is to get the world to become more connected through seeing, and we make our dream become true by publishing the cutting-edge apps. Without getting into the program, there's no way that we can access all these wonderful people, and the mentors that we've received are absolutely world-class.
We bring our mentors in for a week. They come on Sunday night, they meet with me, they're here all day Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, we take them to the Brasa and talk about the companies away from the companies. And then Thursday and Friday, they're in these deep dives, 2.5, 3 hours with the companies, talking, peeling back the layers, and intensity of the mentors, I think, is unique to our program. And that's also one of the reasons why I think we've done as well as we have in Australia.
There are so many benefits of working with the mentors in the program. Some of the big ones for me are the relationships that you build. So it's not just the 13 weeks of the program, you know, we can lean on them after the program and, you know, send them an email if they're on the other side of the world and say, I really need some help with this, who could you recommend or connect me with? And it's a long-term relationship with each of them that you build.
The program has been successful to date, so we've had 20 go through the program so far. Many have actually received capital, which is great. Many have also got access to new contracts for their business, which is another sign of success. So we're very, very happy with the progress so far.
The reason why I actually decided to do it, and don't forget we mentors do it for the price of an airfare, right? So this is something that Australia needs to really harness. We have a lot of smart people in this country. We innovate naturally. It's a whole industry that's not tapped. It means making it possible for young Australians and old Australians, but young Australians in particular, to create new businesses, and then the whole ecosystem is created. It's not just the jobs within that company that get created, it's the jobs, it's the service companies that attach to those companies. So you have a whole viable industry that's built from things like this Innovate Accelerator program.
What a terrific program. Well, Cameron, clearly it's great for the entrepreneurs involved, but what's the flow-on effect for South Australia's economy?
The beauty of a program like ANZ Innovate Start is its potential to create jobs, but not just normal jobs, the sort of high-tech jobs that we might have had to go to Sydney or Silicon Valley to get in the past.
And it's not just entrepreneurs in our own backyard, is it?
No, it's not. This is not just a South Australian or an Australian program. People can apply from all over the globe, and indeed companies from places such as Italy have actually come to Adelaide, set up on the ground, and they're employing locals, so it's great for everyone.
And the key is they're staying here. Well, coming up after the break, Justine Northey peers into the future of marketing. Whilst traditional media still attracts the lion's share of budgets and delivers the biggest bang, the fragmentation in the marketing sphere continues unabated.
In this world of smartphones and tablets, brands are concerned about big data, pivot points and mobile content. We sent Justine Northey out in search of some heavy-hitting marketing types to discover what's on the horizon.
Marketing your brand is vital, but not just any old marketing will do. How you market yourself is just as important as how you market your business, and staying across the latest trends is essential. So how are the current trends impacting the competitive space for those in marketing?
Marketing is very, very competitive. There is just so many messages and so many people vying for a potential customers.
Which means that it's super hard and expensive to reach a good proportion of people across the category.
A little bit like going to a restaurant where the menu is 100 pages long and by the time you flick through it, you're not hungry anymore.
We really need to try and get through people's busy lives to understand when we can actually communicate to them and when they're going to receive a message.
More and more of that is digital, and more of the digital space is going into the mobile space.
And what that really means is that it allows brands to have one-on-one relationships with their customers.
And we're getting much more sophisticated at getting people to do the marketing for us rather than seeing people as the endpoint of any marketing message.
Now more than ever, the consumer is involved in the marketing. But there must be other strategies you can use. What do our experts suggest?
It really depends on what kind of business you're in, what size of business you are, and again, what is the moment of purchase.
A mix that is affordable, but also ensures that you get access to light buyers of the brand, which is what drives brand growth.
We like to think of having communications baked into the actual product, so you don't have to spend money to promote your brand on top of the actual product.
But if you're trying to build a brand, then still there's lots of purpose obviously for TV. And if you're trying to convince people to actually use your service, one of the most important things is word of mouth. We're much more likely to actually believe our friend to shift telecommunications providers than an ad on TV.
We've all done it, getting involved in a social media conversation about a friend's experience with their service provider. With all this emphasis on technology, what can we expect to see in the future of marketing?
So the future of marketing is definitely in the digital space, probably in mobile. I mean, we're seeing that now.
Historically, in communications, we've been obsessed with increasing people's motivation to buy. But now there's a whole lot of technological advances that are looking at how we can make it easier for people to buy.
And who doesn't love an online shopping experience? With so many opportunities to make a purchase, what's the advice for marketers from the experts?
You shouldn't rush into marketing. You need to get your house in order. So you need a very strong sense of purpose.
Don't do anything in marketing until you understand what drives the consumer.
And you have to be desirable to consumers, and you have to allow consumers to be able to rationalise or give permission to themselves to purchase.
You've got to be very clear on your culture, your values. You've got to be very clear on the way that you want to operate the company.
The time for cutting in business, big or small, is kind of over. The key challenge now is to find growth opportunities, and there's no better way to get growth within a business than talking to your customers. And if you invest in that, then you really will be ahead of everybody else.
And let's face it, staying ahead of the rest of the crowd has to be your ultimate goal in business. As ever, the best advice is to try and find the best advice.
Coming up after the break, our unstoppable social media queen Pracky wrestles with time and the lack of it.
Business Agenda SA is proudly brought to you by ANZ, the Institute of Chartered Accountants Australia, and Warman's Lawyers.
Welcome back to the program. Now, Cameron, how often are you online?
We're news junkies. I could spend all day on social media and I really need to watch it. How about yourself?
I'm on it all the time. And speaking of time, thankfully, Pracky has some tips on how time might actually be on your side.
One of the more common questions businesses have when it comes to social media is how can I possibly find the time? We're all already so busy. How can we add social media work to our workload? One of the first things to recognise is you're already putting a lot of time into communication. Even if that communication isn't to the broader public, you are already working on communicating with staff, with clients, stakeholders, suppliers, and all sorts of business partners. You might already be sending out e-newsletters, pulling together magazines, hosting events, attending networking events, or pulling together advertising campaigns. What you need to consider is that social media might be able to take some of that load for you. Or you might find that your company magazine or newsletter isn't working as well as you'd like. So divert time from that task, divide up the content and share that on social media networks instead. There have been plenty of tools that have been invented to help us manage our time. The most popular social media platforms have free smartphone apps. That means you can do a lot of social media work straight from your phone. There are also scheduling apps that you'll find in Hootsuite, for example, or in Buffer app, where you can schedule content. Finally, on the subject of time, don't forget that what time you post will have a big impact on the success of your social media networks. With Facebook, for example, most fans are online early in the morning or in the evenings. Take note of when your fans have interacted with you and learn what works.
And we would love to have you join the Business Agenda conversation. To do so, just use our Twitter handle @BizAgenda.
You can also like us on facebook.com/businessagendaSA, and episodes and other information can be found at businessagenda.tv.
Next week, we examine the state's biggest export earner, the mining industry.
And we have the first instalment of our two-part story on engaging with Asia, where we follow Bethany Wines on their search for new markets.
And Justine Northey figures out franchising.
Thank you so much for your company today.
See you next week.
Goodbye.